Well, good morning. I should say good afternoon because I've been online for an hour, and then in the end I didn't save it. There was something wrong, and I thought, here I am. I wasn't sure, and I pressed the wrong button, and I have to do this again. So welcome to TomPadulaTV on YouTube and Insegna Booksellers, and this is program number 58 of World History by Tom Padula on Facebook, and it's the 24th of November 2022, and it's my sister's Angela's birthday. Happy birthday, Angela. And this morning it's an interesting one because for the first time since I began this journey here, this is the second time actually that things have gone wrong, but this one here was a major one because I had finished it all. And then so for some reason when you actually say save this, it didn't come on, so I didn't know which button to press. I pressed the wrong one and I lost it all. C'est la vie, that's life, and that's history as well. If you miss it, you can't get it back. But there's one way to get around it. You can repeat what you've done before and probably come out better or worse. It doesn't matter. It'll be different, but it's about the same thing. And this morning I am covering, of course, continuing with, we make history as men and women, and it's the turn of Marco Polo and the Mongols that we started last week, and we're going to continue with him. We'll catch up with him when he's in Beijing, and it's from there on. Then, of course, I will go to. There's also another section that is interesting that comes with Marco Polo, and that's the dynasties of China, and also today I had concentrated on the dynasties a lot more, but I'm going to go to what they call the Grand Canal of the Sui dynasty afterwards, and I'll do that, and continuing with world history, and we'll look at Africa. We'll see how we go with that, and of course, after that will be before the invasion. We continue with our history of the indigenous people in Australia. Before Captain Arthur Phillip started to settle here permanently with, he started the ball rolling really, because he brought in 3 ships with him, with a lot of people on those ships, and then they kept on coming back. And that's how Australia has added to the population. But then there were little sort of family wars, wherever these new settlers settled, they sort of fought there were little battles with the indigenous people, or they bribed them, or there was conversation, there was disagreements, whatever. Let's not forget, there was a language problem as well. But, it wasn't a terra nullius as the British called it afterwards. It was a land that was already subdivided by about 150 local nations, local tribes or groups of people, and they had very specific lands that they controlled. So there was a system there that was developed from the Neolithic, nomadic Neolithic systems that the indigenous people had before. So the question today is, do we come back as a nation and start really talking to each other with indigenous people in Parliament as well? And if some representatives join them, that's not the indigenous way, was it? Because each group was separated. We're talking about 240 years ago. So things have changed everywhere. Therefore, now we can only look at what's now and what we want for the future. And what we want for the future is a family, an Australian family, where everyone has got a role to play, everyone joins in, Indigenous, non-Indigenous, people who've been here a long time and people who just come yesterday. If you want to become an Australian citizen, yes, you're part of it all, and we'll make the laws here in a democratic way, and we'll have to follow those. If we don't agree, then we throw them out at election time. And talking about election time, Saturday, this coming Saturday, is the state elections where we're choosing between two possible premiers, one who's done his, who's done his job for the last few years, and the other one who wants to do the job that the other guy has been doing, and in his own way. So that's our system now, and if we can follow that system, I'm sure that things will be right. We'll have a good civilization in the Australian way, and it's like a beacon to the world, because here there are people from all over the world living relatively in peace with each other. Okay. Now, on that note, I'm going to start with Marco Polo. Let's go. When the second time the brothers left Europe to make the long journey to Cathay, that's China, Niccolo took his 15-year-old son Marco with them. There was also his brother, the uncle. The Pope was able to send only 2 Dominican friars, both of whom, pleading illness, turned back before the journey was fairly started. Had just begun. They said, "Oh, we're sick, we're not going to do this." Too hard for them. 6 years later, in 1275, when Marco was a young man of 21, the party reached Peking, which had become the new capital of the vast Mongol Empire. Okay. Kublai Khan took such a liking to the young Marco Polo that he was unwilling to part with his European guests, and they remained in China for 17 years. Kublai Khan was the emperor, the leader of the Mongols. And, their empire really stretched from east to west, literally, from Japan to the southern seas in the Pacific there, and to Europe, to Hungary and Russia and Turkey. Big, and Kublai Khan wanted to know more about Christianity and wanted to have commerce with Europe, and for the benefit of both. During that time, Marco learned the Mongol language and was given many important positions by the emperor. He travelled to such distant parts of the Tatar Empire. The Tatar, that's the Mongols, the Chinese Mongols. Tatar Empire as Burma, and was for 3 years the governor of the great city of Yangzhou. At last, Kublai Khan gave the 3 Venetian permission to leave, because obviously he developed a liking to them. He found out what they wanted, said, "Well, they can be my ambassadors overseas, go back," obviously. They were to escort to Persia a young Mongol bride who was to marry the Persian king, a grandson of Kublai's brother. This time they made the journey by sea, touching at places in Malay, India, and other parts of the Asiatic coast. Marco Polo took Marco Polo's book, written in Genoese prison. In other words, when they went back, Marco Polo was enlisted by the Venetians to fight the Genoese. Just for a year it was, and then he was a prisoner there for a year in Genoa, and in the prison cell he met someone and told him the story of his travels, and he made it into a book, and once the book was out, it was translated into Latin, into French, and other languages, European languages. Very important. Well, I don't know whether I'm going to last this time, Welcome, Angela. I don't know whether I'm going to last because I've done it already for an hour, but we'll see how we go. Perhaps it was fortunate that not very long afterwards, Marco Polo was captured by the Genoese in a sea battle between them and the Venetians. In the Genoese prison, he had plenty of time to dictate to a friend the amazing story of his travels, and the name of the guy was Rustichello da, from one of the cities. Spread knowledge. Now, hundreds of copies of his books, all written by hand on parchment, because they didn't have the printing machine yet, were made so eager were people to read the marvels he had seen. Many readers doubted the truth of some of the stories he's told. They could hardly believe, for example, that the inhabitants of Cathay burned certain black stones which they dug out of the ground. Guess what that was? Coal. The Chinese had been using it for years before the Europeans. But it was not very long before Europeans too were burning coal in their own fireplaces. So once you learn, you travel, the knowledge spreads. Use of coal, silk, gunpowder, compass, paper and printing learned from Chinese. Well, the printing, I don't know about how they printed, it was Gutenberg who did it in Germany a couple of centuries later. Don't know. Marco's journey and his book also led to a much greater exchange of goods and information between East and West. Europeans soon began to use not only coal, but silk, gunpowder, the compass, paper and the art of printing, all of which had been invented or discovered in China, long before Kublai Khan became its ruler. In the last chapter of this book, you will learn how some of the Chinese inventions, etc., were put to good use in Europe in the Middle Ages, and as a result of that, the Middle Ages literally became the end of the Middle Ages. So the Dark Ages, Middle Ages, and then there is a Renaissance period, and that's when we've got a couple of more chapters to do, and I will take a break then and review my work online, and I hope that you too will follow my presentations, lessons, if you like, whatever, inspirational talks, whatever it is that you want to call them, for yourself, so that history becomes your friend as well as it is mine. Okay, so that's one. This next one, I just wanted to mention the dynasties of China, so we get used to the names. Shang, Zhou. The Zhou dynasty was Western Zhou and Eastern Zhou dynasties. Then the Qin Empire, that's the word where China comes from. Qin, the Qin Empire was able to bring together a few of the states surrounding it, and it became the first Chinese empire. Then the Han dynasty came to power, and then there was a bit of a break between that, and then they came back again. And then after those, there were 3 kingdoms, 6 dynasties, the Sui dynasty. And that's what we're doing today. We're going to look at the Sui dynasty, see what happens, okay? So here we go with the Sui dynasty. The Grand Canal of the Sui dynasty. China's major rivers, such as the Yellow River and the Yangtze River, all flow from west to east into the ocean. But there is a river which joins up the north and the south. It is a man-dug waterway, known as the famous Grand Canal. From 605 to 610, in order to strengthen his control of the country and to transport the materials more accessibly from the area south of the Yangtze River to the north, Emperor Yang Di of the Sui dynasty gathered several million workers to construct this Grand Canal. Now that's a vision, huh? A few million workers. It took them about 6 years to complete. Some sections were the former canals, which workers only repaired, broadened and deepened them. And some natural rivers and lakes were also included in the project. The Grand Canal went throughout the country and took Luoyang as its centre. It was originally some 2,000 kilometres long, and the width of the water surface was from 30 to 70 metres. Quite big. The canal reached Zhuangzhou County in today's Beijing in the north and extended to Yuhang, today Hangzhou, in the south. It was connected to big rivers like the Hai, the Yellow River, the Huaihe, the Yangtze River, and the Qiantang River. The canal flows through today's Hebei, Shandong, Henan, Anhui, Jiangsu, and Zhejiang provinces. Therefore, it is one of the greatest projects in China's history. The opening of the Grand Canal helped to transport grains and materials from south to north continuously, and thus played a very important role in promoting the economic and cultural development of the whole country and in maintaining political unity. In the Yuan dynasty, on the model of the old Grand Canal, people dug the Shandong Canal and the Tonghui River, which extended from Beijing in the north to Hangzhou in the south and became the main north-south communication waterway in China. Today's China is planning to restore the Grand Canal, not only for the convenience of transportation between the north and the south, but also to transfer water from the south to the north to solve the problem of water shortage in the north. The north has got water shortage. I don't know, they should, they've got, snow in winter. I don't know why this is so. Anyway, let me read you a little note here. Emperor Yang Di's extravagant trip to Yangdu. Emperor Yang Di was a talented politician, but abandoned himself to sensuous pleasures without any mercy to his people. Yangdu, Yangzhou city's Yangzhou province, was the political, economic and cultural centre in the southern east region. The Grand Canal had hardly been completed when Emperor Yang Di boarded his four-floored dragon boat with thousands accompanying boats and nearly 200,000 in his retinue as sailed downwards to Yangdu for his extravagant travelling. Excessively material and labour resources were splurged for his enjoyment. For instance, the honour guard had extended as long as 10 kilometres. Endless forced labour aroused the resentment amongst the people along the banks of the canal. Continuous revolts had eventually overthrown the government of the Sui dynasty. In 618, Emperor Yang Di was put to death in a mutiny launched by his subordinates. Oh well, he enjoyed himself in the meantime. That's interesting, Chinese history. Very good. I love it. And now we go to Africa. We said we're going to go to Africa. Yes. And Africa is interesting too. And we start here. Yes, yeah. But before I do that, I'm just going to show you the map. Here we go. There, nice and clear. That's Madagascar. This is Mozambique, Swaziland, South Africa, Zimbabwe. That's when they became states in their own right. And it's got the years. Notice that Tanzania 1964, Zimbabwe 1980, Zambia 1984, Angola 1975, Ethiopia, etc. That wasn't part of it. Cameroon 1960, Congo, etc., etc. So these are the nations of Africa which we should learn and know. Niger, Chad, Libya, Algeria, Egypt, Morocco, Liberia, Ivory Coast, Ghana, Togo, Benin. Some of the, Africa is a big continent. It's a big continent. So let's go back to me now. Okay. So now I've got all my things. Probably, I don't know what I did, but anyway, let's go. Last week we stopped at, today South Africa is an independent republic. We continue. In Europe, very little was known of the interior of Africa, which was difficult to reach until the 19th century, when the exploration of Africa became the adventure of the age. The journey of Mungo Park, Livingstone and Stanley excited intense European interest in Africa. After them came traders and missionaries. Notice trade, commerce and religion. Many of whom shared Livingstone's belief that it was Europe's duty to bring the three seas to Africa. Excuse me. The three C's are Christianity, commerce, and civilization. Now, the last one is an interesting one because they've already got civilization, but they want to impose another civilization. So they call the second one that's got to be imposed on the first one a civilization. There you are. There was much unselfish endeavour, to improve Africa's lot. They weren't big hearts, as well as a good deal of ruthless exploitation. Ruthless exploitation, including the selling of human beings as slaves. That's a shocking history in Africa. After Stanley's journeys across Africa from Zanzibar to the Congo mouth, schemes for the political annexation of the continent began to be hatched. Leopold, king of the Belgians, took over the Congo for a time virtually as his own private property. He said, Congo, that's mine. I'll take anything. And let's not forget that the civilization there was more Neolithic, village type. So you don't have big wars, you got little wars. And if you got enough strength, you overcome the little ones and you take over. A bit like the big corporations do in our cities. They eat up all the little, the small businesses. When they want to, they move on in an area and they create a system like Coles and etc. They are the ones who have killed a lot of small businesses, but because they've got a higher power. That's what it is, higher power. More money, more resources, more willingness to protect itself, and then ruthless exploitation. In other words, we're going to offer them cheaper goods and we don't care about the small business down the road. They can close. That's what happened to Africa in a bigger way. Okay, so that's it. So, this King Leopold, king of the Belgians, took over the Congo for a time virtually as his private property, and this was followed by a general scramble for Africa. Following the Congress of Berlin in 1884, the whole continent was swiftly divided up amongst the great powers. We're talking about France, Spain, Germany, England. Even Italy had a little bit of a hand in the 1930s. So everyone wanted to have a piece of Africa. And then it took another 30, 40 years after that to actually for those states that I was mentioned before to become states in their own right, independent of the colonial powers. And the French were more ruthless in a way because they wanted them to be part of France. And, with Algeria, there was a big war there in the 1950s. All right. The whole colony was swiftly divided up amongst the great powers. Railways were built, and in some areas Europeans were encouraged as settlers who might help the country pay its way. In mining and some agricultural areas, this was very successful, and with the help of missionaries, educational and health services were developed and modern technological and administrative machinery introduced. In the French colonies, the idea of assimilation with France was encouraged, but Britain vaguely promised eventual independence. After the upheaval of two world wars, this came about throughout Africa as a headlong pace. In 1945, there were only 4 independent countries in Africa. In 1985, that was 85, 40 years later, only Namibia and the blacks of South Africa had still not to achieve independence. And of course, independence arrived to South Africa in the 90s. Okay, so that's, the history of Africa is an interesting one, and I'm going to look at those colonial powers individually as we go on, and we're going to explore why certain countries, in Africa speak French, and why some of them speak Dutch, and some of them speak English, some of them even speak Italian, but they also speak their own language. And in terms of religion, Christianity and Islam and other minor religions are there fighting each other. They shouldn't, but they still do. And we get reports of that occasionally. So religion still plays a very big part in Africa's divisions, if you like. All right? Now, going from there to us, to before the invasion. Before the invasion. Now, before the invasion, we're going to do... There were many languages in the Australian continent because it's so big. It's a big country, and therefore with lots and lots of different groups who speak languages. But within those languages there were special uses of the language. When, somebody for funerals or other areas. So here we go. Special languages used in Australia, okay, before the invasion, and even afterwards. But we don't talk about that in this book here. We say before the invasion the invasion just didn't stop, never stopped. It still continues today. So which are the languages, the local languages which are part of this story? In most parts of Australia, as far as we know, there were special languages for special times. For example, in the Western Desert, the mother of a boy going through initiation could not use the ordinary language, but had to use a special language. This might last 3 years. In many areas, for example, Western Victoria, and among the Gunwingu people of Arnhem Land, there was a special language for use between a mother-in-law and son-in-law if they had to speak to each other. Normally they avoided each other and only communicated through a third person. These special languages were based on the ordinary language but had different words. They were learned by all the young people because sometime later in life they might have to use them. It was very wrong and rude not to use the proper language at the proper time. It was like someone using 4-letter words to his dear old grandmother. Many of the songs for secret ceremonies, both the men's and the women's, used words that were quite different from those in everyday talk. These were secret inside words whose meaning was known only by the older initiated men and women, or women. They were not to be spoken in public or mentioned in front of uninitiated people. So special language for special times. So that's it for now, for today, and we'll continue along those lines, because now I am going to go to the Colonials and read a beautiful, beautiful poem by Benjamin Patterson. And before I do anything else, I have to have a drink, but the poem is called The Road to Gundagai. And I believe it's made into a film as well. But here we go. The mountain road goes up and down from Gundagai to Tumut town, and branching off there runs a track across the foothills grim and black, across the plains and ranges grey to Sydney city far away. It came by chance one day that I from Tumut rode to Gundagai, and reached about the evening tide the crossing where the roads divide. And waiting at the crossing place, I saw a maiden fair of face, with eyes of deepest violet blue and cheeks to match the rose in hue. The fairest maids Australia knows are bred among the mountain snows. Then, fearing I might go astray, I asked if she could show the way. Her voice might well a man bewitch, its tones so supple, deep and rich. The tracks are clear, she made reply, and this goes down to Sydney town, and that one goes to Gundagai. Then slowly looking coyly back, she went along the Sydney track. And I, for one, was well content to go the road the lady went. But round the turn a swain she met. The kiss she gave him haunts me yet. I turned and travelled with a sigh the lonely road to Gundagai. Oh well, he couldn't. The girl chose someone else rather than him. There you are. You know, the fairest women in Australia are born in the mountains, according to Benjamin Patterson. And you should know, he was a real Australian in many ways. That powerful character. Okay, now we go to our friend Henry Lawson. Okay, Henry Lawson here. He starts. I'm continue the story of the Union. Buries its dead. The Union. Okay. He straightened himself up, stared and reached helplessly for his hat, which he showed half off and then on again. Then he made a great effort to pull himself together and succeeded. He stood up, braced his back against the fence, knocked off his hat and remorsefully placed his foot on it to keep it off his head till the funeral passed. A tall, sentimental drover who walked by my side cynically quoted Byronic verses, verses suitable to the occasion, to death, and asked with pathetic humour whether we thought the dead man's ticket would be recognised over yonder. It was a GLU ticket, part of the Union, and the general opinion was that it would be recognised. Presently, my friend said, "You remember when we were in the boat yesterday, we saw a man driving some horses along the bank." "Yes." He nodded at the hiss and said, "Well, that's him." So the guy, for the funeral. I thought a while. I didn't take any particular notice of him, I said. He said something, didn't he? "Yes," said, "it was a fine day." "G'day, mate, it's a fine day." "You'd have taken more notice if you'd known that he was doomed to die in an hour, and that those were the last words you would say to any man in this world. G'day, mate. G'day. It's a beautiful day. And that guy there died within the hour that they met him. And he was part of the union, obviously. To be sure, said a full voice from the rear, someone piped in, if you'd known that you'd have prolonged the conversation, if you knew that, you would have prolonged the conversation. We plodded on across the railway line and along the hot, dusty road which ran to the cemetery. Some of us talking about the accident and lying about the narrow escapes we had ourselves. They almost got killed themselves as well. Presently someone said, there is the devil. Guess who the devil is? I looked up and saw a priest standing in the shade of the tree by the cemetery gate. He was waiting for the hiss to come in. We'll stop there. It's always good to have a break when the devil is mentioned. All right, well, that's it. That's it for my bit on, Henry Lawson. Another great Australian writer. There are many more, of course, and we'll cover them as we go along. And now the part that I enjoy most. It's 1:42. I'm supposed to finish about an hour, I think, but we'll see. We'll see. Okay, let's go to have a look at the north of Australia. Here we go. We started last time, we stopped here, we start from here. Okay, like Argyle cruises, we came to an end of the cruises. Here we go. That's the guy who, the boat, the manager of the boats there. And it's me and him. Nice. And this now we got to the next place, which is a distillery. And we'll go to the distillery, but this is on the way to there. Look at the beautiful countryside. Okay, look at this. You don't see these things in the city. Look at that. Good to look at. Huh? If you get stranded there, you're in trouble. But there are little roads, of course. So, civilization normally changes the countryside. There you are. Look at the different colours, huh? Looks like there's a bit of water here. Flat land. Very dry too. Well, this must be the dry season in July, okay? That's when you go to the north. There you are, the distillery is coming up. And also, look at the agricultural, the agricultural activity. Here we go, just to get an idea. That's one type. I think there's another type here. Oh. Here we go. Short one. That's another one. This is a good one. Look at this. Kilometers. That's one huge farm. There you are. How big is this, huh? And now we get to the distillery. We there find the hutchery. It's at the back. There you are. A spirit manufacturer license. One of the first ones in Western Australia. The oldest. And that's what they produce as well, you know. They got a lot of awards. Hoochery, welcome. Beautiful, huh? Nice setup, coffee shop, by a tree. Yeah, look at that. Outside areas, nice area. Lots of people had lunch there. My sister Angela and myself, and with another friend from the buses. And here were more people, you know, having lunch, including us. Look at that, different silos. Because that's for making the spirits, no? This barley, whatever it is that they use. Here, home of Kimberley cane spirit, cane. Old rum, Kimberley corn whiskey, aguardiente. A history. I'm not going to read that. I read it last time. Okay, so because there's quite a bit of history here. 1644 to 88, 1788. Look at it. Australia as a whole is claimed by the British and is founded on the 26th of January. That's a big date, that one. And we must not move it away from there, because that reminds us of the hurt that was that people had over the centuries in order to get here and to live in peace now. And, you know, have more regards for the Australian family from, you know, for our Indigenous people, the people who were here from the beginning. I think 1994, 2008 and 2011. That's where this stopped. Obviously, they've got to catch up now. And I don't know what this is. Aboriginal societies with their own languages and defined rights and responsibilities exist throughout the East Kimberley. In the Ngarni, the time of creation, the ancestors of the Miriwong and Gaijirawong people created the landscape and its features along the lower Ord River Valley, its waterholes, creeks, springs, river portions and hills. Some of the creator beings turned in the feature of the land, forever embedding their spiritual insights in the landscape. Interesting. Okay, next one. That's some of the pictures. I love these pictures. Up. Coffee break.
Now my name is Margot. Margaret. Oh, Margie. As long as it's polite, I don't mind what you call me. But I'll take you around and explain. You can take the...
Yeah, she said, you know, you can take photos, but you can't record what I say about the spirits and how it's made, etc. Fair enough. So I stopped and just took some pictures. Good one, huh? That's the taste of the spirit. It was very strong. Couldn't drink it all. No way. Yeah, caramelized, balsamic vinegar. Good production. And then we became, you know, had a good chat afterwards, and it was very interesting. Butchery, Rod River, Cascade, that's Angel again. Some of the people that we were having lunch with from the bus. Ladies and gentlemen, these are toilets. Very interesting. Yep. What do you think, huh? All that beautiful bottles. And we go out. So we finish with the distillery. Now we're outside again. And we're going to look at some of the other very interesting items within the complex. Yeah, hats, books. I'm interested in these ones. And bags. There we are. Souvenirs, postcards, mugs. Looks like a children's book there. Whatever, Fitzroy Crossings around. There we are. Look at the crockies. They're froggies. They look like frogs to me. Connemara. Okay. That's the baobab tree. It's an iconic tree for Western Australia and the Northern Territory. Up. Reptile. Look at Fitzroy Crossing, Connemara, Lake Argyle, Turkey Creek, Doon, Mount Barrett, and that's Cape, you know, some of the, we visited Fitzroy Crossing, Connemara, Lake Argyle, William Brown, interesting. A bit of local history. That's the cards. Okay, it's ladies' fashion. Oh, these are beautiful. Amazing. Yeah, that's a big crock, that one. Fish. Again, that's the baobab tree, baobab. And nope, where are we here? This is another sunset from my window. Here we are. The Connemara Sunset. So take, sunsets from the sky, from the beach. And this is the food that, was presented to us. Select your own meal from it. We didn't go starving, that's for sure. You couldn't eat all that. It's just too much. But then it's a whole big group of people, 40 people. So, what a plate looks like. And this is some, again, from the group. Oop. There you are, Angela. It's your birthday today. Carmel, yeah. And that's the group there. And now, this is numeri cardinali. We'll stop there. That was one of the screenshots. Okay, so that's that. Go back to me. I hope you enjoyed that particular, this particular showing of the north. It's from now on. It's more interesting because the thing is when there is water. It's not as interesting, but the whole journey was incredible. 2 weeks was a very good experience, and this experience of doing this for the second time in one day, and of course the first time was different from the second time, but it was about the same things. So it's program 58. And I'll remember this for a long time, because then I will, and thank you, Angela, for staying on. Normally it's at 11:25 to 11:25 to 12:30, with 5 minutes. Okay, and that's it. That's when I normally go on. Today is very different because I don't know why. But now I think I know why. Because I probably went live, but I must have pressed a little button. Didn't have the finish button here. And now it's here. It should be all right. And I couldn't get to it. Maybe all I had to do is move a little, move the screen around. Never mind. Just a reminder. There is Insegna.com. In there you will find the 20 languages. If you go to it, there's also a blog section which has all these podcasts of mine. Slowly but surely they'll all be there. And you can, if you want to learn a language, please contact me. If you want some books for Christmas, for you, as gifts, that's good. If you come, I'll make it worthwhile for you. Contact me on 0403 279 484. I make it available to everybody because, people need to contact me for this. Don't waste my time. Just come, just ring if you want to come. And, you've also gone to Insegna.com and selected some of the books that you might be interested in, so that you let me know beforehand and I'll take them out, whatever. Okay, so that's important. The other thing I want to say is that there's also Dante Alighieri on Sunday. Dante Alighieri, I'll be doing Canto 19 of Purgatorio. So we went past the halfway mark to that, and that will be, I think, that will be about 115 programs, because there are 34 for Inferno, plus five of my own summary of Inferno, or comments about Inferno, and then Purgatorio, when I finish it, I'll do the same, and then I'll do Paradiso, and I'll do the same with that. So that's important. The other thing too is French. I'm teaching at the University of the Third Age to adults. Adults can learn languages much more easily than children if they apply themselves to it, because they already speak another language and they understand the cognitive part of language. In other words, the understanding of how language works, even though they might not think that they know, they actually practice it, and it's there just to be identified. And the Spanish I am learning myself online, and I can tell you it's hard to remember a lot of words. You could start with the days of the week, the months of the year, the seasons, the numbers, and that's about it. That's about it. So that's world history, French and Spanish, Dante Alighieri, and Italian lessons, which will go to number 60. And then I'll stop there and to give myself a break from it, and for me to catch up with all this backlog that has to go on in Insegna.com and YouTube. And also TomPadulaTV.blogspot.com will also give it to you eventually. Okay, so on that note, I'd just like to wish you all a very good day. I hope that it hasn't been too bad the second time around, and I'm going to finish now. Ciao, arrivederci, alla prossima.